welcome Brian, and we're excited to hear what he's got to say.
Thank you. Let me get myself ready. So, when David and Roger asked me to attend today, oh, weird, you guys are really far away. When you guys, in college, I used to sit at the back of the class too, but in this case, there's not much of an opportunity because the seats are back there. I jumped at it. Fancy title, basically you can think about me as a product manager. And so, I negotiated with Roger and David, and what I have is about 60 slides, about 2 hours of data infrastructure, business continuity planning, failover. Oh, wait a second, wrong meeting. No, just kidding. Today I want to talk to you not a lot about our search roadmap in advertising at Microsoft, but I'm going to kind of challenge you to sit in my shoes for a day. I'm going to kind of describe to you what I do on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of it is trying to envision the future of advertising. And the great thing about working at a platform like a Microsoft, or perhaps a Google, or a Facebook, or a Twitter is we get to end up building a lot of the experiences that we then monetize. And so I have a couple of videos to show you. And in these videos, some of them are very early conceptual, but you'll see some of Microsoft's kind of products that come to life a little bit in some of these videos. And through it again today, and perhaps at a happy hour at the game, or through your connections with Ignition One and Boost, if you have ideas or thoughts about how you as advertisers, or you representing advertisers, would like to see advertising marketing experiences lighting up across these surface areas, please do let me know. And it's always brianu@microsoft.com, so I'm very easy to get a hold of. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time with my teams thinking about is, on the one hand, if you think about the consumer, an individual, how many of you have a cell phone? How many of you have 2 cell phones? How many of you have a tablet? How many of you have a PC? How many of you have 2 tablets? How many of you have an Xbox or a smart TV? How many of you have a streaming Roku device? How many of you use Netflix? How many of you use Amazon's Prime streaming service? How many of you have a wearable? We have an explosion of devices on one hand, and these devices all come with a promise. They come with this promise. It doesn't matter who builds them, by the way. They come with a promise of more connected, more, help you be more efficient. Frankly, there's a big misconception, and there's been a lot of study on one very basic fact. Those of you with 2 screens, I have one. Humans don't actually multitask. They don't. The context switching is actually really hard. So on the one hand, you have kind of this proliferation of devices and therefore data, where I really spend a lot of my time. But on the other hand, who you as marketers and me as a platform provider, I used to be a marketer, you're dealing with one human and finite time. There's only 24 hours in a day. I can only answer an email either on my phone, which is buzzing right now, or on my tablet, or on my PC. And it actually isn't making life a lot easier. It's actually making it more complicated in a lot of ways. I like to tell this story. I grew up in Alaska, and in the early, it was the late 70s, and we certainly weren't getting along with our friends at that point in the Soviet Union. But we had some cultural ties with the Russian Far East, and there was some kind of cultural exchanges. My father was an educator, and we flew over these 2 native Russian speakers, and they stayed with us for a couple of days. And very, very nice people. And I was 10. And we took them to Anchorage's version of a Safeway. It was called Cars. And kind of the first aisle they went in was the bread aisle. And they didn't know what to do. There's like too many choices. Like they literally were like, holy cow. They didn't speak much English, first of all, so the difference between Wonder white bread and multi-grain, whatever, it was kind of beyond them. But at home, they were explaining they kind of only have one choice. I think about this a lot when I end up talking with customers and with consumers, which I do a lot, because there's this massive overload. So to cut right to the chase, one of the things that we try to do at Microsoft is our goal is to make you actually more productive, to make the consumer more productive. And so you see us putting devices in market that are well integrated. So examples are, for example, our Surface tablets. These are designed to basically be a tablet. You can pull the keyboard right off of it, but they're designed to be kind of enterprise scale so you can actually do real work on them as well. So for those of you that are carrying, who carries around an iPad Air? Or sorry, MacBook Air? Yeah, great. Those are so freakishly huge too. I mean, I don't understand how you guys carry those things around. But anyways, so devices, kind of products we put in market like that. And then on the advertising side, where indeed I spend a lot of time, when we think about lighting this hardware, these experiences up, certainly there's a business model that needs to go with it. Traditional Microsoft business model, let's be honest, it's been all about enterprise software licensing. Well, there's a lot of freemium products out there. So Satya Nadella, our CEO, for the last year and a half, has really compelled us to think about advertising and think about the marketer to create, frankly, in a very self-serving way, new revenue streams for Microsoft. Because for those of you who use Office, you know it is a superior product. For those of you who don't, I don't understand how you actually get work done, but it is free for most people, and you can. And some people actually somehow bumble their way through. I don't know, using Gmail. Matt Lawson. I don't know what. Is Matt in the room? Oh, shoot. And part of that. You think about this proliferation of data on these devices, and Bing, at its very essence, we're beginning to think about Bing differently. You talk to your average customer and you say, hey, what's Bing? And they say, oh, it's the search engine. It has beautiful pages. The results are better than what I get on Google, and I really enjoy it. But that's not how we talk about Bing. Bing, for us, is a platform. It's information fabric. So certainly Bing.com, the search engine, is where results from Bing can manifest. But what we have is, on the one hand, this proliferation of signal, call it on the left-hand side of this slide, on top of our web crawler, and very, very deep investment through Microsoft Research on artificial intelligence and intent understanding. And on the right side, we have all this surface area. The surface area where Bing can, in fact, be exposed, or Bing information can be exposed. I purposefully didn't put Bing, the search engine, up there just to kind of be a little bit provocative. We power Spotlight, so third party. Sorry about the rounding error there on Spotlight. And indeed, when you see Win 10 launching this year, you'll see Bing very fundamentally embedded. So Bing won't be a location. Bing will be part of this ubiquitous experience. Again, we're trying to simplify people's lives from a usability perspective. Xbox, Bing is already integrated. Frankly, that's an interesting one. When you think about the interaction with Xbox and the Kinect, I don't think we've got it quite right. Trying to understand how people interact in their living room with kind of gesture-operated signal. But we're actually spending a lot of time working with that team, our Bing team is. And Office, you'll continue to see deeper integration. I left Cortana out for a reason. I'm going to speak to that in a moment. But the idea, and what I'll have you be thinking about is, when I think about search advertising, certainly I think about where all the money is today. It's in the blue links, certainly mobile, which I know Matt will talk a lot about. And that's where a lot of your interests are. But the challenge I'll give you, and again, we'll show a couple of videos, is that's not where the industry is going. The industry is going to new interaction paradigms for consumers. It's going to voice. It's going to touch. It's going to gesture. You will continue to have the typed keyword as a primary signal. But how do you interact with your phone? What do you actually do on your phone? The application of your phone. You do type in keywords when you're actually doing searches on Bing or on Google, but there's these new paradigms and these new expectations that consumers have, and we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out what is the right way, again, to plug in marketers or marketing in that. As I mentioned earlier, at Microsoft, we're compelled to do this based upon the evolution of our business model. I kind of referenced this, but there's 4 modalities that you're going to hear me talking about. Anyone who's spent any time with me or heard me talk before, I do talk about these 4 modalities. Gesture touch, spoken word, and voice. The way that we think about our family of devices, and you see this lighting up in our phone, which I'll talk about, you'll see it lighting up in Win 10, is again, we're trying to, in a ubiquitous way, bring the value of the Bing information fabric and understanding who you are, understanding what your interests are, to help you get through your day. So it's not necessarily just about search anymore. It's actually not search, it's getting things done. Search is a very kind of interesting parochial word. It's very appropriate 10 years ago when you're typing in a keyword, but it's growing, the industry is growing so fast, and the paradigms are expanding so broadly and so quickly. And frankly, I think it challenges us as an industry. It challenges Microsoft and Google and Facebook and Twitter as a platform. It challenges, I think, you as marketers. And then it challenges the Ignition One and the Boosts of the world, who are kind of on the bleeding edge of technology support, to kind of integrate your interests into these new scenarios. So kind of in order to enable this virtuous cycle of enabling a marketer to kind of create a relationship and tell a story to an end consumer to drive an actual action, it's going to take all 3 of these entities: the actual advertiser, the supplier of a service, as well as the platform itself, to be working together. Cortana is an early example of how we are trying to keep up and truly innovate on the kind of advancement in how things and how people are expecting to interact with their devices. Have any of you interacted with Cortana? Okay, a couple. So a couple things I'll say about it. It's not surprising. It currently is only embedded in Windows Phone, which doesn't have great market penetration. We are talking about how do we extend Cortana onto other devices. It will be embedded into Win 10. So for those of you who do use Windows devices, you'll get to experience her. I call it a her on my phone. It's a female voice. Cortana is a lot different than Siri. It's a lot different than any voice-activated kind of search utility. Because it's embedded into the Bing information fabric, Cortana learns about you. And Cortana is embedded into kind of real-time data streams. So for example, it wasn't this week, it was last week I was traveling, and Cortana just informed me via voice that I had to leave early because there was a wreck on the 405 and I was going to miss my flight. Basic things like that. These are the types of kind of areas where Microsoft is really leaning into. And on the advertising side, we're trying to figure out, well, in this experience, in this small phone experience, it's not actually, you're not entering a keyword. You might be interacting via voice, or Cortana might be prompting you with information that you need to know to be more effective. What are the right marketing or advertising scenarios? I could speak to it more, but I think I'll show you a video which I think will give you a better flavor. And one of my challenges will be on Cortana specifically. You're going to start thinking about this not only on your phone device, but also on your Win 10, on your PC, or on your Surface tablet. And so as marketers, be thinking about, for my business, what would be the right way for me to interact with a consumer? And I would frankly love to hear from you directly on your ideas, because this is an open, it's a blank whiteboard. It's a clean canvas. We can paint whatever we want in terms of the advertising scenarios that we can build. And more than that, we're being compelled to do so, as I discussed earlier. So let's watch the video real quick.
There's a lot going on in our world. Think of all the ways we interact with technology in a given day. Over breakfast, I check my calendar, launch the weather app to scan the day's forecast, another to check traffic updates, and finally a fourth to confirm the status of my flight. Look at all this stuff that I've just taken in, all before leaving the house. And to top it off, I'm out of milk. But wouldn't it be great if technology could take care of all of this for me? By now, you've heard about the next version of Windows Phone. We want to take a minute to show you how Bing is enabling a new class of experiences, like Cortana, designed to make your life easier. A team of computer scientists across a range of disciplines developed the components that make up the Bing platform. Building on Bing's massive index, the platform incorporates advanced machine learning, speech recognition, entity understanding, and stream processing that makes sense of trillions of pieces of information about the real world. Instead of you having to monitor the 50,000 flights in the air today, or the 70,000 cars on the interstate blocking your commute, the Bing platform does it for you. Let's look at one example of how these pieces come together. Cortana, remind me to buy milk when I leave the office tonight. When I talk, my voice is sent to the Bing platform, where speech recognition technology turns what I've said into text and employs natural language processing to better understand what I mean. Because I previously confirmed with the system my office address, it recognizes what I mean by office. My reminder is then passed to a system which manages data streams. By data streams, that could be anything from the status of my flight, to breaking news from my favorite sports team, to, in this case, my location. So when I leave the office, it knows to tell Cortana to remind me to buy milk. Making sure I have milk in my cereal is just one example of how the Bing platform makes my life easier. Check out Windows Phone and Bing.com soon to experience how we are making technology increasingly personal, helpful, and intelligent.
So to put a pin in it, in this first section of what I want to talk to you about, we're putting the human in the center, and on the one side, we're thinking about organizing all the information we have about you, and on the other side, to express itself in the variety of experiences you have in your day-to-day life. Cortana is just one example, and at the end of my talk, I'm going to show you another video that is even more far-reaching in terms of the types of products that we up in Seattle are spending our time with in terms of the product team, and we're getting challenged to think about, what would be the right advertising or marketing scenario that we light up. Taking us down a little bit in altitude, I'd like to speak just briefly about our progress in search, and specifically search advertising. And this kind of ties together now from a very high level. I talked about intent understanding, and I'm going to show you a video, but very locally, Bing as a search engine has come, and Yahoo, Bing and Yahoo have come very, very far together. Bing has been around in some way, shape, or form for about 10 years. We've had this fantastic partnership with Yahoo for the last 5. And the advancement in the tech stack has been, on the Bing side, has been very dramatic. So you'll see kind of where we are in terms of our product roadmap. I've got about a 2-hour presentation on product roadmap, but trust me, it lands us right around here, and it's a lot about audience targeting. Roger asked the question, who's experimenting or who's doing audience targeting, who's using RLSA, and very few hands were raised. I think, is Matt in here? I just saw him. I thought I saw him. Anyways, only 2 hands were raised. I promise you that if you're not experimenting with it, you should think about experimenting with it. On the Bing side, we are beginning to test our remarketing product, which is unnamed. It's in pilot, but it basically operates very similarly to RLSA with a couple of key improvements. I'm not above. Is Matt in here? But what you'll see is, because of the proliferation of these devices and kind of modalities of how people interact, we're really beginning to look more toward the future around kind of the curation of content. So you would see, if you were kind of experimenting with Cortana on a phone, the actual types of content are super cool now and interesting. NUI is our Microsoft. I've been here 10 years. It's the king of the 3-letter acronyms, the TLAs. NUI is new user interface. So we spend a lot of time thinking about the actual rich experiences that we can present to marketers. So that is kind of the, trust me, I'm only going to give you 30 seconds on the product roadmap, but trust me, this is it. Happy to speak with you more in more depth. We certainly work with Roger and his team, and we've worked with David and the Boost team a lot on how we integrate their services into our platform. So you can also speak with them. One of the things we know as we progress down the path where we're compelled to progress around personalization and these really rich experiences, is that data is at the core of everything, and not just any data, but very specific data about you. When you, for example, boot up your Windows Phone for the first time and you want to interact with Cortana, Cortana actually asks you for some fairly personal information. GPS, is this your home? Yes, it is. Okay, now I know where you live, so I automatically know when you leave. So when you tell me, hey, buy milk, remind me when I leave the home, that's how it knows. Is this your office? Is this your spouse? Is this your partner? Are these your friends? And one of my teams does a lot of work in data sciences, and at Microsoft we spend a lot of money trying to understand customer sentiment by going out and actually asking them and surveying them. And we've found a couple of things. One is that, no surprise, when consumers first start interacting online, privacy. Now, you can park millennials a little bit, but privacy is very important, and they're very worried about their privacy and what are we going to do with their data. But as we get a little bit more deeply into it, there's an expectation. There's an expectation that is created. So on the one hand, we know and we've proven that consumers will pay more attention to your brand if you give them contextual information. So 57%, bank it. That's a global number. You'll make more money. You will get more connectivity with your consumers if you understand them and communicate to them. Furthermore, this is really interesting. 48% of consumers expect brands to know who they are. Well, how can you know who they are if a consumer isn't providing you information to tell you who they are? There's a couple of ways. You can certainly work with data providers. There are collectors of consumer data. The best way to do it is when the consumer kind of volunteers the data themselves. Certainly because when something very personalized comes up to me and it's because Axiom sold it to, I don't know, Twitter, and it just feels a little creepy to me. So we at Microsoft, we take this very deadly seriously. All we have with our consumers is a bond of trust. And so we do a lot of work trying to be industry leading in terms of how we protect the data. But also we want to kind of deliver on the request of consumers here in advertising to actually create a platform where these types of personalized experience can actually be delivered. So what you'll see in terms of audience and data understanding are a few things coming from Microsoft, very tactically, call it over the next 12 months, 8 months. One is, for those of you who have not instrumented UET, our Universal Event Tag, this is important. Roger talked about the importance of tagging your site. There are a lot of tag solutions out there. If you're not going to tag it directly with UET, if you want to participate and benefit from potentially all the advertising opportunities you see at Microsoft, go with your tag manager because this is embedded with most of your tag managers. I mentioned that we have remarketing in pilot. We're aggressively pushing the timing on GA, general availability. That should be coming this year. And we have in early pilot our native product. This is a solution that we will likely be GAing sometime next year. It's something that we have, we're very excited about it. There's a lot of movement in the industry around, basically it's the concept of taking massive amounts of search demand and applying it against content pages. The difficulty with display, of course, today is the bar of entry is extraordinarily high. You have to develop an asset, you have to develop a strategy, et cetera, et cetera. We're not first to market in this. A number of companies are trying to dramatically lower the bar so that you can gain access to your consumers across the variety of surface areas. And again, at Microsoft, we have many of them that you might be interested in. So we're extraordinarily excited about our native product. And would like to work directly with you as well as with you through partners such as Ignition One and Boost. I'm going to close with a video that was just recently taken out of quarantine. So I mentioned Microsoft Research. Microsoft Research is where a lot of, I believe, our very innovative products have come from things like Connect. And what you're going to see is about a 4-minute video of some consumer professional experiences. And as you watch this, I'd like you to be thinking in the back of your head. You're not going to see advertising, but I'd like you to be thinking about the scenarios and thinking about how might we kind of work together to create monetization scenarios that might be appropriate for what these consumers are doing or what these professionals are doing. So let's run this video. So that gives you an idea of what I get to spend a lot of my day doing, is working with our research and our product teams on these new devices and experiences. A lot of this stuff looks pretty far out, but if you think about it, a lot of these products, the touch products, the augmented reality product, which I didn't talk too much about today, they've actually already been rolled out, and we're very actively and aggressively pursuing this type of product innovation. And hooked directly into that are going to be advertising and marketing opportunities for you to take advantage of. All right, I know I'm over, sorry, 5 minutes. I'm Brian Utter. Thank you very much for the time. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you today.
Thank you, Brian.